Right guys, welcome back to the channel. This is part one of me and Steve reacting to young Joe Joyce being sentenced to 10 years for murder. If you want to watch part two, jump over to Official Topic Talk, that's Steve's channel. You can find the link for that in the description of this video. Subscribe and ring the bell to his channel. Subscribe and ring the bell to this channel if you haven't already. And tune in for part two coming soon on Steve's channel, Official Topic Talk. If you want to follow me on social media, you can via all the links I've provided in the description of this video. My Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, my GETTR and my Rumble. I'd appreciate it if you jumped over to Rumble and GETTR and followed me there. Rumble is just like YouTube, but it's uncensored and it's all free. Subscribe to me there and give my videos a rumble, which is equivalent to a like. Jump over to GETTR to hear my uncensored opinions on all situations. GETTR is just like an uncensored version of Twitter. Thank you very much for tuning in, guys. Remember, tune in for part two coming soon on Steve's channel, and the link for his channel can be found in the description. Peace. Yeah, so like Steve, I don't understand the whole thing to do with the justice system here in the north of Ireland, Northern Ireland. It's absolutely crazy. We're just going to react to it now. So basically, young Joe Joyce has got, 10 years in jail, prison for the murder of the young fella McDonough. I think anybody with sort of half a brain cell would see that as manslaughter. What's your reaction to that, Steve?
I think it's ludicrous, to be honest with you, and it's definitely a bias system that seems to be working over there because my opinion, and it's solely my opinion, and it's because he's from the travelling community, is my opinion, to be honest with you. I feel if that was any other person on the street, it would have been found as manslaughter and not murder. And I do believe at that point, at that time, the system worked against him and was biased totally and utterly. Like I say, I just feel myself after listening to everything and knowing what I know, it's simply and utterly a miscarriage of justice because he's from the travelling community, Ronan.
The last form of racism, Steve. I'm sort of anti-woke. I hate all this woke stuff about racism and about they'll call anything racist these days. They'll say, but I do believe that the last form of racism here in the West. Now I know that there's racism of all kinds against white people, black people, Chinese. There's religious hatred, but there's one form of racism that's really rife, and that is racism against the traveling community. And I didn't actually realize that the traveling community was considered a race because I was actually recently filling out my son's form in school. It was something to do with vaccinations, and it was they were asking what race you were, and I put my son down as white, Caucasian, but actually there was a box that you could tick that said the traveling community. So they're considered a race of people, right? And I do think that regardless of what way you see it, regardless of what way you feel about the traveling community, this is a form of racism because what the things that I'm looking out for here, Steve, from the north of Ireland, Northern Ireland, is that he got 10 years, right? Now, on a murder charge. So he was sentenced to murder and he got 10 years. Even the prosecution, who went for, I think it was 12 and a half years, knew that something was up. They didn't ask for 20 years. They didn't go for 25 years. They didn't go for 30 years. They didn't push their luck. So I'm looking at the prosecution thinking to myself, well, if yous are asking for 12 and a half, then yous know that this is quite an unfair case in regards to what yous are giving to young Joe Joyce. And the defense, I think Joe's defense went for 6.5 years. Forgive me for all the details. If I got some details wrong there. And it's like, why is this a murder case? This isn't murder. This is manslaughter. And looking into the laws a little bit, as I have been doing, I've been noticing that for something to be murder, there has to be no doubt whatsoever that it's murder for any type of murder. And in this case, there's series of doubts throughout the whole thing, which makes it manslaughter. One, he didn't mean to kill the guy. You know, we can never forget that a man's lost his life. Two, he went for a non-lethal blow to the legs. It was just unfortunate, and the fact that it was unfortunate, which was brought up in the I think it was brought up during the trial that it was unfortunate. That sort of indicates manslaughter. You don't use the words unfortunate in a murder case. It's murder, or it's unfortunate manslaughter. Um, and I just don't understand it now. I don't know anything about the law. I don't know. I think there will be an appeal. I'm very, very confident that if a good civil rights solicitor, or a really good solicitor, even a half good solicitor, could go into that, pick that apart within seconds, and get the justice that's deserved, which is, in my opinion, at the very most justice manslaughter, and at the very least self defense. Do you know what I mean? And if he gets manslaughter, okay, I can understand that. But if this case went to self defense, I would go, okay, I totally understand that too. But I do believe what they're trying to do is it's one, biasness towards the traveling community, 100%. Two, and I'm going to explain why I think it's biasness, right? I'm not going to just say that and say nothing. And two, it's sort of the explanation for the first one is that it's the hierarchy sort of making their stamp. This is sort of a celebrity bare knuckle boxer. He's in the traveling community, and we're going to make a stamp on this guy. This is the bar. If you do this, this is what's going to happen. But that isn't the law of the land, Steve. And there has to be the law of the land. So I'm going to explain the first thing that I said there. I think I think that when it comes to the judges and it comes to people being selected for things, I'm not giving off about the judge. He was just doing his job, and this isn't me criticizing the judge. This isn't me saying that he's a bad person. I'm not saying that whatsoever. But whenever I was outside the courts and I was looking at the people that were going in and out of the courts, that I was with the traveling community. I was with them, Steve. And the feelings that I was getting, the looks that I was getting from the solicitors and the judges that were going into the court were not good looks, and they weren't good feelings. They were looking at me as if I was a second class citizen. They looked at me as if I was scum. And I seen it. I remember one guy. He was a judge. I don't know if he was on the young Joe Joyce case, but he came out, and I was just in his way, just mistakenly. And he didn't even say sorry, excuse me. He just looked at me. He just stood in front of me and just looked at me until I moved. He didn't look at me as if it was a human, because he thought that I was one of the travelers. And I says, "Oh, sorry, I'm in your way there." And he didn't say thank you. He just moved on around me as if I was scum, as if I was going to do something to him. And all the guys were doing were protesting, and it was a peaceful protest. So I think there's a massive misconception of what the traveling community is. I think that can be changed. I think they're better people in the sense that they can have a bare knuckle fight and get over things instead of just stabbing each other in the street, like you're seeing young fellas doing that aren't in the traveling community. I think there's something to be said about that. Um, but under no circumstances is young Joe Joyce a murderer. That man isn't a murderer, and this is where I'm a little bit angry, because if he got manslaughter in 10 years, okay, he's not. It's not on his record for a murderer, right? But it's on his record that he is a murderer. If the appeal doesn't go well, and he doesn't, and they don't get that done properly, then it's down on his record that he's a murderer, and that's not good.
Yeah.
That's not good. Um, so I don't know what to do. In the sense that I don't know how to help them. All I can do is bring exposure and awareness to this, and just point out the inconsistencies throughout the whole thing.
I mean, that's the only one thing we can do. I mean, other than putting out a message for somebody who's got some weight behind them, like a celebrity or somebody like that that can, like I do understand Paddy Doherty was even down there, and I mean he's got some clout, behind him as a celebrity, and he was there, to push the message that it's not murder, it's manslaughter at the least, if not self-defense. Now maybe that's where maybe one or two other people could have stepped up the same way that Paddy did, to chuck a bit of their celebrity weight behind it. Maybe a politician or the local MP, maybe, I don't know. But they should have got behind them. Discrimination, I think, is a word that comes to mind. And I believe that give it another day, give it a different jury, and things will be quite different, because the only words I can mutter to the population of people listening is a miscarriage of justice in its finest. Considering the little details, like you've mentioned, you got the police force, you've got the army. They use non-lethal blows, and a prime example is what young Joe, has used a non-lethal blow. Now he could have chose to have gone for the head. He could have chose to have gone for the heart. For the chest. I mean, these are deliberate acts of intent, to cause the damage. But he hasn't. He's used a non-lethal blow, and it's